What's up, everybody? This is Paulo Crispalaya, guys. Thank you for clicking on my video. All right. One thing I want to just clearly just come out and just be frank and just tell everybody is that fear is real, guys. Fear is real, and everybody experiences fear. Is that a plane up there? I think so, right? Anyways, fear is real, guys, and everybody experiences fear, right? So what I want to share with you guys today is something that I'm actually going through, and that I'm always going to continue to keep going through, guys, because one thing I've found out is that if you want to be successful, or if you guys are looking to do anything in life that is significant, you're always going to encounter fear, guys, and fear is always fear, no matter how it manifests itself, whether it's your first fight, you're doing a kickboxing fight, whether you're afraid of somebody, whether you're afraid to speak, whether you're afraid to drive a car, whether you're afraid of phobias, right? Fear is fear, guys, and everybody experiences fear. Even the people that you don't even think fear, right? Even the people that you look up to experience fear, guys, and that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about some of the ways that you can actually counteract fear, okay? Now, what I mean by that is that there's no way of actually getting rid of fear, but there's a way to actually start handling fear, right? There's a way that you can be productive rather than be unproductive with fear, right? So let's talk about some of those ways. The first way I want to share with you is honestly, I'm actually going through something right now, but I understand that the first thing I need to do, and the first thing that you should do, is you have to admit your fears, guys, all right? You have to admit your fears, all right? There's three kinds of people. The first type of person is the one that doesn't take any action, stays at home, covers himself under the blanket, and calls it a day, and says, I'm not getting out of here. I'm afraid. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to step out of my house. The second type of person is the person who basically is hoping. They are hoping that somehow, some way, it's just going to disappear, right? Kind of like if they're hoping for like a fairy or something, It's not going to happen. And the third way to handle it is to just face your fears, guys. So going back to the first one is you have to admit your fears. You have to honestly say to yourself, okay, what's really happening here? What am I really afraid of, okay? I'm going to throw a crazy statistic out there just so you guys can have a better understanding, okay? 60% of fear, right? 60% is stuff that's most likely never going to happen. It's unwarranted. It's stuff that we begin to imagine. We start beginning to put thoughts together, and we allow our emotions to hold us captive, right? 60% of that, all right? 20% of that happens to be kind of like the same thing, all right, guys? Only about 5 to 4% is actually stuff that will happen. Stuff that's going to happen, And that's such a small percentage, right? So out of the whole 100%, technically 95% of it is not true, it's not real. Only 5% is. All right? So hopefully that makes you feel a lot better, okay? Because sometimes you can start imagining that you're going to get chokeslammed, you're going to get suplexed, or you might even get killed, right? But most of the times we just get carried away with our imagination, right? So the first thing you need to do is admit your fear, guys. Next thing is one thing that you guys need to understand, and I kind of touched over in the beginning of the video, is that there's a price that you have to pay for progress, okay? Whenever you're stepping out into a brand new territory, whenever you're stepping out into something you've never done, whenever you're telling people, you're telling your loved ones, or you're telling anybody that you're deciding to do something else, there's always going to be fear. There's fear that you have to pay for, right? You might be feared to tell them. You might be afraid of the unknown. You might be afraid of if that was the right decision you had to make, or you might be afraid that maybe it's too soon, right? That's something you're always going to have to pay for progress, right? As you continue to get big and as you continue to become more successful, fear is always going to be there, because as leaders, as leaders, we're always constantly growing and developing, right? We're always constantly being stretched out, and we're always stepping into new levels, right? Levels that we've never reached before. And that's how we know we're constantly growing, and that's how we know we're progressing. But through it all, you have to pay a price. You have to pay the price of fear, guys, all right? And I just want to share a quick story real quick, all right? I actually read it on one of John C. Maxwell's book, all right? And it happens to be about fear, right? And he basically states and says that fear is basically interest that we pay on a debt that we may not owe, okay? So he gives an example and he tells a story, right? He basically says one night, should I say, a husband and his wife are actually sleeping, and in the middle of the night, the wife kind of jabs him right in the ribs, and he wakes up and he's like, huh? Okay, yeah. She's like, I think there's a thief downstairs. I think there's a robber. Do something about it. And she's whispering, So he gets up, you know, he gets up all kind of like sleepy, not even realizing what's happening, right? Because her wife heard some noise. He steps out of the door, he goes down into the hallway, he goes down the stairs, and as he's going down the stairs, there's a gun barrel pointed right at his forehead. And the thief and the robber actually says, "Give me all of your valuables right now." So as the husband is handing all of the valuables to the thief or the robber, right? This is actually funny right here. As he's handing the last piece, he actually says, "Hey, I would like you to meet my wife because she actually has been expecting you for the last 30 years." Right? So the whole concept of that story happens to be that, you know, when we're afraid of stuff, we're sometimes allowing our feelings, right? Because fear is kind of like a feeling, an emotion, to really captivate us and keep us imprisoned, you know, not allowing us to be fulfilled, not allowing us to be happy, not allowing us to really enjoy anything because we're constantly fearing, right? So that was the whole point of that story. All right. The next thing you need to understand is that the only way you're going to conquer fear, and the only way you're actually going to confront it, and the only way you're actually going to be, you're going to feel, you know, you're going to make the decision to do so is by having a burning desire, guys. A burning desire is something that just ignites you, right? A burning desire is something that takes fear and turns it into fire, okay? Now, what do I mean by burning desire, guys? If you guys have not written out your dream statement, if you guys haven't written out your goal statement, if you guys don't know why you're doing it, then guess what, guys? You have nothing to go back on. You have nothing to actually see for yourself and say, okay, this is the same exact reason. This is the reason why I'm doing it. This is the reason why I'm making the decision. And even though it's hard, and even though I've never done it, and even though I'm afraid of what the outcome was going to be, even though I'm afraid of the reaction or the response that I'm going to get by people, I'm going to do it because I'm going to live my dream. I'm going to do it because this is my why. My why because I want to do this, this, and that. My why because I can't stand it anymore, right? Whatever the case is, guys, when you are able to reflect and go back on the reason why you're doing it or your dream, it always sparks a burning desire, guys. All right, that's the third one. And the fourth one that I want to touch on, which is going to be the last one, is that you can only control focus on only things that you can control, right? One more time, focus on things that you can only control, right? This is the biggest one, all right? When a lot of people have fear, you can only handle it two ways. It's either you are paralyzed by fear, right? And something cool that you guys should know is actually fear causes procrastination, all right? Because if you're afraid to do something, you're not going to take any action on. And you're going to constantly let that fear hold you down. You're going to constantly let that fear just imprison you, right? And not let you ever out, right? So you need to understand that, right? So you can only control your actions, right? Focusing on what you can only control is very important, right? You can't ever control on how other people are going to feel. You can't ever control on their actions. You can't control how something may turn up or certain obstacles that may pop up on the way to your journey. But one thing you can control is your attitude. One thing you can't control is yourself, guys, right? So that's big, guys. And I'm going to finish off with this, all right? I'm leaving a PS. All right. The bottom line is that you're either doing a few things, okay? You're either feeding your fears or you're starving them. And you're actually feeding faith. All right. It's between fear and faith, guys. It goes down to those two things. And I'd rather starve my fears and give the food to my faith. So I can step out on faith and I can make decisions that are risky, decisions that a lot of people aren't willing to do, decisions that are uncomfortable, because I believe and I'm stepping out on faith, guys. All right, guys? If you guys thought this was interesting, guys, I want you to click on my link below. It's going to take you to my blog page, and you can check out the whole article there. Or you can check out other cool stuff that I kind of write, guys. And you guys can actually leave a comment and support. I hope this was useful, guys. Have a good one. Take care.